So Justin Baldoni is fighting back, or shall I say, biting back with teeth at Ryan Reynolds' response. Ryan Reynolds' motion to dismiss. Baldoni's response is coming in hot. We're going to go through all the legal documents today. We have Meghan Markle's diva behavior being exposed by a former royal reporter and Blake Lively's donut stunt. It was a stunt. We got confirmation. We're going to get into it. Let's do it. You're listening to No Filter with Zack Peter, your go-to source for all the latest pop culture and reality TV tea, served fresh all week long. Now, let's dive in. What's up, guys? Welcome on in. Happy Monday. Or no, what's today? Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Hey, I'm not even taping this on a Monday. It's literally Wednesday, April 2nd at 9:40 a.m. in the morning. Top of the morning to you. So yeah, welcome on in, guys. Welcome on in. Let's do a couple of additional shout outs for people that left podcast reviews this week. Shout out to Brina253, back to Zack. So glad to see the podcast shifting away from so much Blake and back to a variety of topics like the pod I know and enjoy. Listen, I cover Blake and Baldoni stuff because there's stuff breaking every day, but I appreciate it. There's always going to be a mix. I always want to let everybody know there's always going to be a mix of topics. If you listen the full episode through, I know the headlines may lean heavily on Blake and Baldoni stuff, but like we always cover an array of topics every day. But thank you for sticking with us, Brina. Okay. Kate 5000 says an authentic point of view. This is a new fave and a fun podcast to listen to. I love how Zack is unapologetically himself and doesn't bend to the mainstream opinion just because it's the popular one. He is not afraid to share what is on his mind. And in this day and age, everyone's afraid of saying the wrong thing. I appreciate it. While I don't always agree with his point of view, I can appreciate where he's coming from and enjoy the discourse. He does it in such a fun and lighthearted way. He is truly a genuine delight, and I'm so glad to have heard him on Juicy Scoop. Love listening, and I think he will probably be in my most listened to list on Spotify at the end of the year based on how much epic content he gives us almost daily. Thank you, Zack. Thank you, Kate. That was very sweet of you. And then we have Island Mommy of 4 says, I love this show. I love how upbeat Zack is, and I automatically smile when he says, welcome on in, welcome on in, welcome on in. I really appreciate that he covers such a wide range of topics. It's quite evident that he is very intelligent and he can explain legal issues and everything else going on in the entertainment industry and pop culture. Zack is second to none. Thank you guys for these podcast reviews. I appreciate you. Let's do a quick shout out for people that leave comments on Spotify. Spotify. Let's see. On Spotify yesterday, we have Jesse Ann Bryant says, please cover the lawsuit against Andrew Tate. I think that's going to be interesting. Ooh, that'll be an interesting one. ID was Team Lively. Yep, that's Investigation Discovery. They're the ones that did the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni documentary. Nandhi says, I just ordered a shirt and love this podcast. Yay. Thank you for ordering your shirts, guys. Deanne says, you're so damn funny. Got your drink on last night. Oh, no, that's right. Carmela says, I just watched a while ago. They also show clips of Justin Baldoni as Ryle when he was out of control in the movie. Oh, yes. In the documentary, they took a lot. Because his character Ryle is an abuser. So they played a lot of those clips as well, which doesn't help to paint a negative image of him. SM says, not split ends on the donuts. Patsy says, great episode. A says, I wish I could rate every episode, but Mondays was fire. And Paola says, can we talk about Justin Bieber? He is not okay. No, he's not okay. And I break that down. We talk all about it in this week's or today's new episode of The Pop Report. So be sure to check out my other podcast, The Pop Report. That's what the podcast that I do with my friend Andy Lawani. Definitely go give that a check out. Listen, we have a new episode today. We talk about Justin Bieber, Hailey Bieber, Morgan Wallen walking off SNL. We talk about Kim Kardashian, Kanye West saying that he never wanted kids with Kim, all that stuff. Let's get it. All right, let's see. Let's start with, I'll just preface it now. We'll end with the Baldoni stuff because I want to go through all the legal documents, and that will take some time for us to go through some of the arguments that are made in Baldoni's new complaint. So we'll start off with Meghan Markle and Blake Lively. I guess let's start with Meghan Markle. So there was a a new episode on the Juicy Scoop podcast. You know, I love me some Heather McDonald Juicy Scoop. Well, Heather McDonald Juicy Scoop just had on this woman, Shallon, who is hilarious. And she used to be a writer for Star Magazine. And she talks about Meghan Markle and how the royal family really didn't like, or just the royal, what are they called? The people that work for them? Um, are they also considered the monarchy? I don't know. The people in the royal palace did not like Meghan Markle, and she gets into it. Here's a clip from Juicy Scoop.
Meghan Markle story.
Oh, yeah. I was at Star at the time, and priorly, you know, we'd always written about the royals. They're a huge seller.
Yeah.
And they were a very tight ship. The House of Windsor was a tight ship. There was no sources. There was no nothing. When Meghan got in there, leaky AF. Like, people were singing like a bird because she sucked. And the accounts we were getting, people are like, we are risking our job, our family's legacy. Like, the people who work in service at that level, it is truly like a calling. Like, they're very proud of it. It's not just a job they take lightly. They're going to work in service for a lifetime. They're going to pass that down. And so for them to risk that, to share how awful this woman is.
And how was she awful? Like, give me some examples.
Yelling, ungrateful, rude. She came in there and it was this like, I'm a disruptor. This is not the place you disrupt. And to your point, I absolutely get it, where it's like, yes, so many mother-in-laws like, you're taking our son from us. This to me is why I hate Harry. He should have been less of a wuss. He should have been out in front. If that's the case,
right?
If his family is that toxic that he needed to break away from them, he should have been like, this is my decision. Like, he should have been on the tip of that spear telling everyone.
I feel like he did a little bit in the Oprah interview.
If we flip the genders on this, and if you had a man isolating a woman from a big, stable family, and then turning and being like, you can't work, but it's like, I'm the reason you can't work because I took you from this family, and you are subservient to me, so you're going to do things my way. We would see that so clearly as an abusive dynamic. That would not be like, well, you know, she has to stay home. She has to stay home because he's created that situation, and not by an accident. It seems very advantageous that, yeah, she's the breadwinner. Yeah, she's making all the decisions. That is part and parcel of her personality, which seems to be, as we're seeing, pretty hungry for power and influence. And hey, you can't knock the hustle, but don't then turn around and say you're the victim. Just be like, yeah, I'm fucking power hungry. Rah, like, go for it.
So here Shallon breaks down that she used to be a writer for Star Magazine, and how, you know, the court is, I think, what somebody referred to them as in the live chat. So I guess the court, like people that worked within the royal palace and were close to the royal family, they were leaking things about Meghan because she really was difficult to work with. And we've heard these rumors about her. She would yell at staffers. She would go through a number of different staff members. We heard about her yelling at one of Kate Middleton's staff members. She made Kate Middleton cry one time, was one of the allegations. So we've heard these things be reported in the past. Meghan ultimately came out and she tried to deny a number of these things, especially in the Oprah Winfrey interview. But I think Shallon makes a really good point. Outside of the tabloid fiddle, right? Outside of all of the headlines about Meghan or her being difficult, which is interesting that she was known to be difficult within the royal palace, and she's consistently continued to be known to be difficult, whether it was working with Spotify or working with this new Netflix show. I believe a report came out that, you know, people were having struggles working with her because she is very difficult to work with. Now, she can just be hashtag girl boss, you know, mama of the year or whatever. If she wants to lean into the 2016 girl boss era, I don't have a problem with that. But what I have a problem with is, again, her playing up this, I'm so cool, don't be fooled by the rocks that I got, I'm still Jenny from the blog. Like that whole charade, you know, the whole facade of what she tries to be and her overly curated image that I think we can tell is not real. That's the part that has such a disconnect when it comes to people that get frustrated with Meghan Markle, especially with the inconsistencies in her stories. And granted, to be fair, you know, celebrities, when they tell anecdotes, like they're allowed to add a little sauce onto the story, right? They're allowed to put a little sriracha on it if they want to spice things up and make a good anecdote for Jimmy Kimmel. I'm not against that, but it's when there are these things that are so egregiously taken out of, you know, the proper context, or we're twisting things and we're making allegations of racism within the royal family. It's like when we go that big, that to me is where you really fumble the ball. But I do think that Shallon makes a really good point, and I think I want to invite Shallon on this podcast. But I think she makes a really good point of saying, if the gender roles, I know gender is a construct and gender like doesn't exist anymore, but whatever. But if the gender roles were reversed, because people like to pick and choose when gender is a thing and when it's not a thing, but should it have, like, had it been Meghan as part of the royal family and Harry came in and he was this guy from America, he was just this actor from America, met Meghan Markle, came into the royal family. Suddenly, there were issues, there were reports that he was difficult, and then he suddenly decided to leave with her, and they leave his family altogether, the powerful family that is the royal family. You step down from your roles. Essentially, as Sean said, she used the word isolate. You're isolating. If he isolated Meghan away from her really powerful, wealthy family, took her away, moved her to another country like the US, there would be a lot of questions, right? Especially considering it seems like Meghan is very much the one that wears the pants in their relationship. So again, had those roles been reversed and had it been Harry that was running the show, I mean, look at Kanye and Bianca. Every time Bianca does something, people are like, "Oh my God, Kanye's controlling her." I think I've even called her, Kanye's concubine, because that's kind of the impression that we were given. And I think it's because of the perception of, seeing the man and the woman and how there are these power imbalances. Or look at Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, the power imbalance there. Just because he is the man, they're trying to, like, we pick and choose when we want to lean into these gender roles, and they're not always consistent, is I guess the point that I was trying to make. But anyway, I think had those roles been reversed and Harry was the one that took Meghan away from the royal family, I think we would be looking at it very differently, and we would be looking at this as like a toxic, masculinity sort of conversation. He took her, he's isolating her, he's grooming her, he's doing all the buzzwords. It's just, I think, a double standard. It was Paula in the house. Paula in the house. Paula in the house. Reverse the roles and see what happens. Exactly. If we reverse the roles, it would be a whole different story. So I think there are legitimate reasons that Meghan Markle is disliked by the public, and it's not rooted in racism. It's not rooted in sexism. It's not rooted in any of those things. It's rooted in the fact that people find her insufferable and controlling and manipulative. And those are reports that we've heard since her time in the royal palace, her time working at Spotify, even now with working with Netflix. Like, there have just been a number of rumors that have been circulating about Meghan Markle for a long time. If you read Tom Bower's book Revenge, that's also very enlightening and really pokes at the inconsistencies in the stories and her behavior and the allegations that she's made. And she's made really big, strong allegations. Again, she called the royal family racist, you know? Oh, Paula says now Megan's accusing Dr. Sophie of using the race card. I still have to look deeper into the Dr. Sophie and why Harry and Meghan had beef with her. Because I feel like there's so much more under that surface that I am excited to dig into. Okay, so that's the Meghan Markle of it all. Let's talk about Blake Lively. So, what was it? Yesterday? When was it? Monday? We saw over the weekend that she was at the donut shop. And everyone's like, "Oh my God, Blake Lively, look at her. She's so cool. She's such a cool girl. She's serving donuts up at the the bakery in Connecticut. She's so down to earth. We love her." Well, Daily Mail got some exclusive excerpts where they're saying that I guess Blake Lively was doing this as a PR stunt. So this is the latest article from Daily Mail. Blake Lively fans left disgusted by her shocking behavior during donut PR stunt that missed the mark. I think that was my quote, the missed the mark quote that they pulled from me, because there is a direct quote. Look at that. When podcaster Zack Peter, host of No Filter, shared the images on Instagram, one fan wrote, "Why isn't her hair pulled back? First thing I thought, you donuts with hair." One other person replied, and then another wrote, "Exactly. If she was serving food, then her hair needs to be pulled back. Lean back, lean back, lean back, lean back, lean back." And then they also pulled a quote. They also pulled a quote from me too. Here, I'll read. I'll read it because I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Meanwhile, Zack Peter also weighed in on the Star's donut debacle, calling it a calling the Baking Blitz a a PR stunt. Looks like Blake Lively is doing everything she can to look cool and unbothered amid her legal saga with Justin Baldoni. And then we have a source that is now revealing what went down in this PR stunt. So it says, speaking to the Daily Mail, an insider said Blake did this on her own. She was not advised by her team to do this. So this was not orchestrated by the ex-CIA guy Shapiro. She told her team after this happened, and everyone thought it was a harmless idea. The source continued, it's not so much a PR stunt as an effort to gain back her fans by showing her softer side, which people loved her for. Wow, I guess people loved donuts with hair in them. She wanted to show that she truly cares about people, but in hindsight, she really missed the mark on this. Federal regulations in every state specify that women need to wear hairnets when handling food. Blake wore her long hair down. This is also the responsibility of the donut shop to make sure health regulations are adhered to, but everyone was so excited to have Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds there that this was likely overlooked. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Brigitte says a softer side. LOL. What does that mean? A gummier side, right, with no teeth. We wanted to make sure it was soft. She's a ball buster, and she's saying she doesn't need to be hard. She can do it soft. Watch out. Will the donut shop get fined? I don't think so. I mean, it was a quick. I don't think anybody's going to make a big deal out of it, to be honest with you. I just, it was a cute PR stunt, but it was very clearly just that, a PR stunt. And now the Daily Mail has an exclusive source that confirmed that Blake did this. She did this on her own. And it's very obvious that, she's trying to win back the public. But what do you think? Did this PR stunt win you over? Did it make you kind of soften towards her at all? Like, what was your reaction? Paula says, ooh, yes, LOL, watch out for the teeth. How do you overlook all that hair? Yeah, that was kind of my thing. It's like, how do you overlook that? Like, you should be more mindful of it. I think they didn't want to say anything to Blake Lively because they were like, she's Blake Lively, we're not going to tell her to pull her hair back. Like, it's okay. Well, nobody's going to really care. Like, people are going to be more focused on like being excited to see her and get donuts from her. Blake Lively is just trying to be Trump. She's no Trump. Actually, speaking of that, I put this meme up on Instagram. Or yeah, I'll just pull it up directly from Instagram. Which, by the way, guys, if you're not following the Instagram account on the No Filter Instagram account, definitely be sure to do that. Look at, I did this one. And it's a photo of Blake Lively. I mean, it's the Trump photo of him in the garbage truck. Remember when he did that publicity stunt when he was campaigning? And so it's Donald Trump, but it's Blake Lively's face over. And instead of saying Trump, make America great again, it says no teeth, make America yummy again. And then I also did this one of Blake Lively on Donald Trump's body of her working at McDonald's, the same way he was working at McDonald's, to show that, like, oh, look at, she's literally took this out of a page from Trump's book. Look at my so-called Bravo Life says toothless, not homeless. Yeah. Multi says out of all the memes, this is by far the freaking best. Love it. Yeah, it's just kind of, what in the coconut tree? So thank you, Blake. Nailed it. Just killing it out here with the PR stunts. Dun, dun, dun. Yes, guys, if you're enjoying this, be sure to hit the like button. Hit the like button. Let's get it, get it, get it. Paula said I should go on Instagram more often. Instagram's a fun time. I loved that post on Instagram. It was hilarious. Thank you, Sarah Paul. Okay, let's talk about Justin Baldoni. Justin Baldoni, Baloney. What did Ari Emanuel call him? Also, just want to remind everybody to stock up on merch if you want to get your Justice for Justin shirts. You have until April 11th to place your orders, and 50% of all proceeds, all merch proceeds. So whatever you buy in the merch store, 50% of my proceeds, I'm going to be donating to the No More Foundation. That's the organization that Justin Baldoni partnered with for the It Ends With Us movie. He wanted to donate 1% of all sales from It Ends With Us to the No More Foundation. As far as I'm aware, that is still happening. That donation was made, but I also just figured while we're here, while we're breaking down all the legal saga, why not come in here and do the same, right? Let's try to raise some awareness for domestic violence and SV, and just try to do our part. We're covering this. We're fighting for justice. And if you are on Baldoni's side, you can get a shirt that says Justice for Baldoni, and know that, like I said, 50% of my proceeds from all merch sales will be donated to the No More Foundation. So you have until April 11th. So get your orders in. You can also buy the Mommy Sleuth shirts. People have been loving the Mommy Sleuth shirts. You can do Daddy Sleuth. You can do Zack Pack hoodies. You can do the classic Zack Pack tank top, t-shirt, all available now. Nofiltermerch.com. Go to nofiltermerch.com right now. Stock up. Yes, it is a pink lotus flower. So the new limited edition merch, the Daddy Sleuth, Mommy Sleuth, and Justin for Justin merch, that's all. There is a lotus flower on each of those to symbolize DV awareness. So yeah. Okay, let's dive into the drama. Let's get into the drama with Justin Baldoni. Okay. Here we are. We have the latest court filings. You are my fire, the one desire. So this is Baldoni's response to Ryan Reynolds. So usually you have, I think the deadline is 14 days to respond. And so here we are. Baldoni has responded, and it's actually pretty yummy. So we'll get through like the first 20-ish pages so you can see where we at. But yeah, mostly just the introduction. Like, we don't need to get into all the civil codes and all the cases that are referenced here. But so just kicking things off, we have consolidated plaintiffs, and these are the Wayfair parties, which include Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, It Ends With Us movie, Melissa Nathan, Jennifer Abel, Steve Sorowitz, collectively the Wayfair parties. And they are respectfully submitting this memorandum of law in opposition to consolidated defendant Ryan Reynolds' motion to dismiss the amended complaint for failure to state a claim for attorney's fees and costs, and to strike Exhibit A of the amended complaint pursuant to Federal Rule Civil Procedure 12B6 and F, and New York's anti-SLAPP law, the motion. Introduction, and this is what I love, and I pointed this out and posted it on X. I love that he opens up with this quote from Ryan Reynolds. Okay, this one right here. It says, "I've read that I'm too big to fail at this point, so I just crush my enemies and drink their blood." Ryan Reynolds, July 20th, 2024. So I believe this was part of publicity that he was doing for Deadpool. But so this is the introduction. But I love that they open it with this quote, because if you remember Ryan Reynolds' motion to dismiss documents, he referenced a number of out-of-context quotes from Justin Baldoni, from his TED Talk, from his books, from his podcast, and he was trying to use all of those things to frame Baldoni as a predator. So I like that they're playing Ryan Reynolds at his own game, and including quotes that are also likely not in their full context, but that definitely, make it seem insidious the way Ryan Reynolds' legal team did to Baldoni. So it says, Ryan Reynolds pretends that the Wayfair party's first amended complaint fails to set forth any basis for his liability, and that he merely acted as a supportive spouse. Period. Not so. Period. The FAC, the first amended complaint, the FAC specifically alleges ample facts to support the Wayfair party's claims against him, based on both his direct actions and his liability as a co-conspirator. The motion fails to show that the Wayfair parties fell short of their pleading burden under Rule 12.6b6, and the Tumbly, and I guess another case that they reference. California law also applies to each of the Wayfarers parties' claims, but under the law of either New York or California, the Wayfarer parties have pleaded defamation and torturous interference claims against Reynolds sufficient to defeat dismissal. That this is particularly true, whereas here, Reynolds, his superior knowledge of the facts underline the Wayfarer party's claims given the early stage of discovery. In the alternative, any deficits or inartful pleadings in the FAC can be remedied by amendment, which is freely allowed, and the Wayfarer parties have gained additional information to plead further facts to support each of their claims against Reynolds, as well as the need to apply California law. Furthermore, the Wayfarer parties can amend their complaint to more fully incorporate the allegations of Exhibit A, which I believe is the timeline of events. To fully incorporate the allegations of Exhibit A into the body of the complaint, mooting the motion to strike. Finally, even in the extremely unlikely event that the court determines dismissal without leave to amend is appropriate, Reynolds is unable to recover his attorney's fees as neither California nor New York's anti-SLAPP laws apply here. So they're trying to say the anti-SLAPP laws don't apply and that his case shouldn't be dismissed because they can amend their complaint should they need to amend their complaint, but they're specifically referencing his own behavior and how his behavior led to the dismissal specifically from WME. In short, the motion should be denied. In the alternative, the court should grant the Wayfarer parties leave to amend their complaint because any defects in the first amended complaint are easily cured based on the facts now known to the Wayfarer parties. They said, bitch, we got some new tea. We got some receipts and we're showing up to the table ready to eat. Okay. Legal standard and factual background. I don't think there's anything that interesting in here. And then here's their argument. The FAC. So people always forget what FAC means. FAC is first amended complaint. So the FAC gives adequate notice to Reynolds under Rule 8. Reynolds incorporates by reference the arguments made by other parties that the FAC contains impermissible group pleadings. The Wayfarer parties incorporate their responsive arguments from the opposition to the motions to dismiss of the Sloan parties and the New York and reiterate that any defects can easily be cured by amendment. California law applies to California parties' claims against Reynolds. The choice of law rules of New York, the state forum, apply. The first step is to determine whether the laws of New York or California conflict. So this is kind of the jurisdiction issue that we were dealing with specifically with like Blake Lively and the Me Too law that she was trying to utilize, the civil code that she was trying to play with, which ultimately isn't going to help get her case dismissed here, but could help her down the line once it goes to trial, if it goes to trial. But so here, there's still this argument over which laws apply to which allegations and which claims and, which civil codes are going to be relevant. So this is a battle of the New York law versus the California law. I believe that's a jurisdiction issue that the judge will have to ultimately decide on. The laws of New York and California conflict as to each of the Wayfarer parties' claims against Reynolds for defamation, false light, invasion of privacy, torturous interference, and civil extortion. As to the false light and civil extortion, the conflicts between the two state laws is total. California recognizes the claims where New York does not. So this is where they're just arguing which state laws would technically apply to Baldoni or Reynolds. Okay, so then we move on to the First Amendment complaint states a claim for defamation against Ryan Reynolds. So here's where they're saying their claim for defamation stands. Where defamation is clear on its face, it is defamation per se, and damage is presumed. They reference another case. To plead defamation, a plaintiff must allege 1, a written or oral defamatory statement of fact concerning the plaintiff. 2, publication to a third party. So it doesn't have to be published like in a newspaper. It can just be from one person to another as long as there's malicious intent behind it and as long as there are damages that come from a result of that communication. So it's just publication to a third party. 3, fault, either negligence or actual malice, depending on the status of the libeled party. 4, falsity of the defamatory statement. And 5, special damages or per se actionability. The court must decide only whether the statements alleged to have caused plaintiff injury are reasonably susceptible to the defamatory meaning interpreted to them. Then we get into the FAC sufficiently identifies Reynolds' defamatory statements of and concerning Baldoni and the other Wayfarer parties. I think this is where they actually name like the who and what. This is where they have the full timeline of who at WME Ryan Reynolds spoke to. Reynolds' contention that the FAC fails to identify defamatory statements he made fails on its face. The federal rules require that each pleading be specific enough to afford the defendant sufficient notice of the communications complained of to enable him to defend himself. Okay. Reynolds must have confused the rulings of pleadings with the rules of evidence. Very good point. Very strong argument. The FAC alleges that at least twice Reynolds stated to WME executives. Okay, so this is the part where he actually name them. So the FAC alleges at least twice Reynolds stated to WME executives, Baldoni and Wayfair's talent agency, that Baldoni is a sexual predator and that by implication, WME was in business with a sexual predator. The first statement was on July 15th, 2024, when Reynolds contacted Baldoni's agent, Danny Greenberg, for the purpose of making these defamatory statements. On the call, Reynolds referred, so it sounds like they have Danny on record, maybe in email, or he's willing to testify or be deposed, that Ryan Reynolds did say these things to him. I would imagine if Lively's team deposes Danny Greenberg, they're going to say, well, what did you do with that information? Did you take that information to Ari Emanuel? Are you the one that's then responsible for how this, firing ended up happening? I mean, it's possible that Danny disclosed that to maybe some higher ups, that Ryan Reynolds made it clear that Baldoni was a predator. I don't know. On the call, Reynolds referred to Baldoni as a deranged predator. Ooh, there we go. We have a direct quote, a deranged predator, and warned Greenberg that Baldoni should not attend the film's premiere the next month because nobody wants him there. Another direct quote, nobody wants him there. What I think is really interesting about Baldoni's when he quotes people, he actually uses not just the direct quote, but he references the date, the time, the form of communication, right? This is a phone call. This happened on this date. This is between Ryan Reynolds and Danny Greenberg. Danny Greenberg, Brigitte says, is a partner at WME. Wow, Justin Baldoni had one of the partners repping him. That's big time. Whereas in Blake Lively, she would reference these anonymous sources or these anonymous people that she didn't want to name just yet that had quotes, and she would quote them, but we don't know who they are, when this was said, the context in which it was said, et cetera, et cetera. Here we have dates, receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots, everything. The second statement was on July 22nd, 2024 at the Deadpool and Wolverine premiere when Reynolds told a senior WME executive that by representing Baldoni, WME was doing business with a sexual predator. As alleged, Reynolds was pressuring and later demanded WME to cut ties with Baldoni. These allegations are more sufficiently specific, identifying the speaker, listeners, and why, where, and when the statements were made. Given the specificity, it is unclear why Reynolds cites cases involving allegations so threadbare as to omit the time, place, speaker, or listener. As to the other Wayfarer parties, the FAC alleges that Reynolds worked in concert with Lively and the Sloan parties to publicly and falsely smear them. Reynolds and his co-conspirators made statements to third parties, including at least the New York Times, that the Wayfarer parties engaged in, permitted, and or failed to prevent misconduct towards Lively and retaliated against her for reporting the alleged misconduct, including by spreading lies to damage Lively's image. Reynolds, with Lively and the Sloan parties, told the New York Times a false and damning story about the insidious PR sabotage operation deployed as revenge for harassment complaints, knowing the newspaper would publish it. A statement underlying a defamation claim must specifically refer to or be of and concerning the plaintiff. Okay. There's no question that requirement is satisfied. As alleged, all the Wayfarer parties have become figures of infamy because of Reynolds' statements, which were widely disseminated and understood to refer to them. Furthermore, and of and concerning requirement is an issue of fact for the jury to decide, and the court may dismiss an action only where the statement is incapable of supporting a jury's finding that it refers to the plaintiff. This is not the case in which a jury would be incapable of finding that the statement and issue refer to each of the Wayfarer parties. Any doubts raise a question for the jury, not a question for the law for the court. Very good point. Same thing with Blake Lively and the Me Too civil code that she tried to use in her motion to dismiss. Though that is up to the jury, that's not up to the judge. It's a matter of fact, and juries determine matters of fact, not the judge. The judge can only determine matters of law. Melanie King says Baldoni versus Ari and WME. Where's the lawsuit? Didn't their publicly traded ish past mean someone kept the receipts for accountability, even if they're playing hide and seek in the private sector now? I don't know. That's a good point, though. Okay. Let's get back to it. The Wayfarer party's allegations also implicate the small group exception of the group defamation doctrine. An individual belonging to a small group may maintain an action for individual injury resulting from a defamatory comment about the group by showing that he is a member of the group. So this is where they're trying to I guess, argue, because part of Ryan Reynolds' argument is that, like, well, technically they're only claiming that, like, I damaged Baldoni. So why am I attached to this lawsuit where there are all these other defenders, and Baldoni and his team are trying to argue, well, because it's part of a bigger scheme here. That's what they're claiming, that there was this coercion, that there was, or not coercion, but there was this collusion. Reynolds' defamatory statements are not unactionable opinion. Okay, so this is where they're fighting back the opinion piece, because that's what Ryan Reynolds said. He's a predator, but that's just my opinion. That's my opinion. Under California law, to constitute defamation, the offensive publication must state facts rather than opinion. A statement is defamatory only if capable of being proved true or false. Statements do not imply a provably false factual assertion, and thus cannot, from the basis of a defamation action, if they cannot reasonably be interpreted as stating actual facts about an individual. But a statement of opinion is actionable if implicitly based on undisclosed facts. Whether the statement is fact or opinion is for the jury to weigh. So again, these are matters of fact. That is determined by a jury, not by a judge. Here, the question is whether a fact finder could conclude that the published statements imply a provably false fact. The court implies that a totality of the circumstances test in which the court reviews the language of the statement and the context in which the statement was made. If a statement is factually specific, earnest, or serious in tone, or the speaker represents himself as unbiased, having specialized or firsthand experience, or having personally witnessed abhorrent behavior, this may signal that there is a factual basis for the accusations. Courts apply New York law generally consider whether the specific language in issue has a precise meaning which is readily understood. 2, whether the statement is capable of being proven true, and 3, whether the full context of the communication in which the statement appears is such as to signal readers or listeners that what is being read or heard is likely to be opinion, not fact. New York courts focus on the overall context in which the complaint of assertions were made. Let's see. If a statement contains opinion, the court must then examine whether the statement is pure opinion and thus non-actionable, or mixed opinion and therefore actionable. The actionable element of a mixed opinion is the implication that the speaker knows certain facts unknown to the audience, which support his opinion and are determined to the person about whom he is speaking. So in this case, speaking of Justin Baldoni, the dispositive inquiry is whether an actionable reader could have concluded that the statements were conveying facts. Reynolds' attempt to recast his statement as opinion is belied in context. These statements were statements that at least implied undisclosed facts. All are susceptible to a defamatory meaning, namely that Baldoni had committed egregious sexual offenses that warrant the label of sexual predator. Um, Then there are a few more cases that are referenced that support their argument. Context also matters. Oh, did Brian Friedman take that from us? What do we always say on the show here? Context matters. That's what we need a new shirt for. Context matters. So here they're quoting. This is a Zack Peter quote right here. Context matters. Ryan Reynolds made the statement to key WME figures in an effort to force WME to drop Baldoni. Reynolds' argument is that the deep disdain for Baldoni precludes a defamatory meaning to his words is illogical. Then we have a footnote here. The footnote, what is the footnote in reference to exactly? The footnote is in reference to the statements. These statements were statements that at least implied undisclosed facts. And then they have a statement here. The case law cited by Reynolds, all of which is flatly inapposite, demonstrates the importance of viewing statements in their proper context. I wonder, is this referring to the like the other? No, actually, sorry, off on a train of thought. Okay, so the case cited by Reynolds, all of which is flatly inapposite, demonstrates the importance of viewing statements in their proper context. In Wexler versus Allegion, for instance, the statement at issue referred to counterclaims as predators bent on achieving their growth ambitions in a press release about the litigation. The question before the court was not whether the use of the term predator was actionable opinion, but whether it accurately characterized the allegations in the lawsuit for the purpose of the fair reporting privilege. The statements at issue describe the plaintiff as a predator and the face of evil. Yikes. And the face of evil. So this is a different case. These aren't things that Reynolds has said about Baldoni specifically. In generic terms, which is not true here, given Reynolds' deliberate use of the modifier sexual, the narrow set of events Reynolds purported to be referring to and his target audience, which in this case would be the people at WME. That altogether is a different talent than Baldoni's talent agency, as fact that Baldoni is a sexual predator, because Ryan Reynolds said that to WME. Context also distinguishes Reynolds' statements from the statement in Rosa v. Eaton, which the court noted were posted on Instagram, which were informal, unedited, and a forum for stating opinions. Okay, and then there's the Reynolds' defamatory statements are not substantially true. Reynolds argues that the defamation claim fails because his alleged statements are substantially true. Remember, first he was saying it was my opinion, but even if it's not my opinion, the statements that I made were true. But the truth is a question of fact for the jury. So back to the jury. So it kind of seems like that's their argument overall, is that whether it's true or not true ultimately will be determined by the jury. Reynolds first argues that the FAC alleges facts that a reasonable observer would well consider predator. He next argues that a review of extrinsic evidence, specifically Baldoni's book, podcast, and YouTube appearances, are a factual basis for his assertions. Reynolds' first argument collapses upon the scrutiny of the FAC. Reynolds points to a conversation Baldoni had with Lively at Sony's discretion about her wardrobe choices. A suggestion that the film's intimacy coordinator relayed to Lively by Baldoni, as Lively would not meet her, about the mechanics of a particular intimate scene, calling a costume sexy, hiring a Shakespearean-trained actor with an MFA in acting to play a doctor, Jamie Heath, not Baldoni, showing Lively in preparation for a birthing scene a single clip from a home birth video depicting Heath's newborn son, and Baldoni's purported failure to deny the biting and sucking of Lively's lip, even construed in the most uncharitable light, which would be inappropriate here. These admissions do not show Baldoni is a sexual predator. I mean, that's... Again, I think that comes down to a matter of fact for the jury to decide. Personally, I agree with them. I don't think showing, or hiring a trained actor to play the doctor in the birthing scene, or Jamie Heath showing her the birth scene from, his newborn son's birth. I think a number of those things were taken out of context and were made to look more salacious than they actually are. Whether or not that's deemed predatory behavior, I don't think it would. I would technically be a member of the jury, but the jury has to collectively come to a decision when they see all of this presented in front of them. Reynolds' second argument is barred as it requires the court to consider extrinsic evidence not properly before it on Rule 12b-6 motion. To prove that Baldoni is a sexual predator, Reynolds draws on excerpts from Baldoni's book, YouTube videos, and podcast episodes, none of which are in the FAC. I think the Ask Two Lawyers guys, Keith, they were explaining how you can only use quotes that are in the First Amended complaint, and this is where I think they made the argument that they believe that that Reynolds was playing to the public, knowing that the public was going to get access to this and read it, and so he wanted them to see Baldoni as a predator by including these excerpts from his book and podcast out of context, but like they wouldn't necessarily apply here because those statements were not in the FAC, the First Amended complaint. Reynolds' statements to WME executives did not refer to Baldoni's past statements. As alleged in the FAC, Reynolds was referring to what purportedly happened on the set of It Ends With Us. Reynolds' continued effort to smear Baldoni is irrelevant given the submission of evidence is not proper on a motion to dismiss because it is only the sufficiency of the pleadings that are the issue. On a Rule 12b-6 motion, if matters outside the pleadings are presented to and not excluded by the court, the motion must be treated as one summary judgment under Rule 56. All parties must be given a reasonable opportunity to present all the material that is pertinent to the motion. There are very few exceptions, including for written instructions attached as exhibits to pleadings, and the court will sometimes consider the documents that a defendant had either in its possession or knowledge of and upon which they relied bringing the suit that were integral to its complaint. So here they're basically saying he can't use the statements that he used. When he specifically was talking to the WME executives, he wasn't referencing Baldoni's YouTube videos. He wasn't referencing that he was a predator from his podcast. He was referencing it from the allegations from the set of It Ends With Us. Okay, let's fast forward because we kind of already get the argument. Wayfair parties need not plead special damages because the Reynolds statements are defamatory. Okay. They, I think, have made a very clear argument for why they're defamatory. The Wayfair parties have pleaded actual malice. Under the Constitution, a public figure pleading defamation must prove by clear and convincing evidence that the statement was made with actual malice. Got it. Reynolds was intimately involved in and integral to Lively's concerted campaign of extortion to extract concessions and creative control over the film. Reynolds and Lively exploited Lively's false insinuations to coerce the Wayfair parties to cede to their power and authority to which they were not entitled to. Reynolds was also directly involved in the marginalization of Baldoni from the rest of the cast and exclusion from the premiere. We very clearly have the phone call where Reynolds said that Baldoni should not attend the premiere because no one wants him there. Having yielded under duress to their coercion, Wayfair finally resisted that Lively and Reynolds demand that they take the fall for Lively's disastrous promotional campaign. Then Reynolds and Lively pushed falsehoods from production with a lie combined with an untraceable smear campaign to the New York Times. Reynolds and Lively, along with the Sloan parties, engaged in a coordinated effort to exaggerate benign interactions in service of a false narrative that Lively had been sexually harassed. They did so to instill terror in the Wayfair parties and leverage it to accumulate power. This accumulation of power depended upon the ability to conjure and exploit ruinous allegations. The allegations were never true, and Reynolds knew full well or did not care whether they were true. Reynolds' insistence, he believed his words, although not alleged in the FAC and not properly before the court in an argument that he committed extortion, not defamation. Reynolds also knew that the smear campaign narrative was false and acted with reckless disregard for the truth. Along with his co-conspirators, Reynolds got a hold of the communications between the Wayfair parties from Stephanie Jones that disproved the claim that the Wayfair parties have orchestrated a smear campaign. Given that they had materials, Reynolds, Lively, and the Sloan parties either knew that the narrative they later publicized was false, or at least best regarded evidence. disregarded evidence. It also would have been clear to Reynolds, who owns a marketing company, that the cause of Lively's bad press was her decision to hawk liquor and hair care products while promoting a film about domestic violence. The notion that the backlash was caused by an untraceable smear campaign is inherently implorable, that a reckless person would have to put the claim in circulation. There were obvious reasons to doubt the veracity of the statements, which Reynolds disregarded. The FAC alleges sufficient facts to infer actual malice. Finally, the FAC satisfies the Wayfair party's pleading burden under an actual malice standard. It is important to note that 6 of the 7 Wayfair parties are not public figures: Heath, Sorowitz, Abel, Nathan, It Ends With Us, and Wayfair. I don't know if It Ends With Us and Wayfair are considered non-public figures. I think if they're public companies, I don't know. I get it. Heath, Sorowitz, Abel, Nathan, all private people. So you wouldn't necessarily need to prove um need to prove the is it the malice part? What's the part that you need with the public figure? Sorry. Too many words, too many words in my head. But that's interesting because they're trying to say that Ryan Reynolds was complicit in this campaign. I mean, this is it's going to be hard to prove this unless they do get deposition. They are able to, in discovery, get text messages and emails or something where Ryan Reynolds is specifically involved in this article published by the New York Times. I don't know how they're going to be able to prove that he had an active role. Obviously, we can prove his part with WME and him losing his job with WME, but we'll see. That's interesting. I wonder if even if this doesn't go forth against Blakely, let's say she gets out on the Me Too lawsuit or the Me Too civil code, and let's say like the law, she's able to work through those loopholes. The New York Times is protected through the freedom of the press privileges. But like I feel like he still has a strong case against Ryan Reynolds as long as they can get Danny, the partner that was formerly representing Baldoni, to go on record. And if they're able to prove that Ryan Reynolds made these statements to WME and then have the Freakonomics interview with Ari Emanuel, who said that they fired Baldoni, like I feel like those pieces collectively are pretty strong pieces to prove that at least Ryan Reynolds did defame him. That I think should they lose their case against Blake Lively, they could still win their case against Ryan Reynolds. Oh, Lauren's here. Hi, Lauren. Lauren, I'm sure you've gone through all these documents. What are your thoughts on all of this? Context matters t-shirt. Yes, absolutely. Lauren, you were up late last night, then early again today. Ooh, the depositions will be murderous. Yes, they will. That's going to get interesting. Zach, can you put the timeline on the court dates again, please? Well, Sarah, actually, I don't know if if that timeline is going to hold up, because I feel like everything right now is a bit delayed, that I don't even know if we're going to still have that timeline to go off of. I mean, yeah, I can put it back up on the screen, but I don't think that timeline is going to stick. I think we're probably going to have some delays, TBH. Okay. Oh, here's a fun footnote. Again, Reynolds' deep disdain for Baldoni does not even imply that he did not act with actual malice, even if allegations are ill will are insufficient to raise the inference. Evidence of Reynolds' ill will is probative of his mindset. Got it. I think the argument here is clear because the FAC satisfies the burden of actual malice as all the Wayfair parties. It is unnecessary to analyze the lesser standards. The Wayfair parties have adequately pleaded a claim for civil extortion. Okay. I also think they have a strong argument here, right? As Reynolds concedes, California recognizes a claim for civil extortion. Reynolds claims that the tort is limited only to extorting money through threats of prosecution, but points to no authority that California courts so limit the claim. Under California law, the exact contours of this common law tort are not only strictly defined. Civil extortion claims are based on the law of criminal extortion. Courts applying California law hold a civil extortion claim will not lie only where obtaining money was the aim, to the exclusion of other consideration. Yeah, so we know this argument as well, and they're basically saying that the extortion, Ryan Reynolds is trying to argue, well, I didn't get any money. I didn't actually gain anything from this alleged extortion, but he got power on the set. He got the power to seemingly they wanted the rights to the second film. They also seem to have had a lot of influence over WME. I don't know. I think the extortion claim is pretty strong. Lauren says, I really liked it. Enough sass, but not so much that it was unprofessional. As much as I love mess, I'm glad that they didn't devolve into Ryan's level bullshitting. Yeah, I think it shows that they have a stronger case because they don't need to. I feel like, thank you, Lauren. I feel like they very much are leaning on we have the evidence. This is the evidence. These are the claims made against us. There's, false light invasion of privacy, which I believe is specific to California law. And then there's interference claims about the contract with the WME. So yeah, those are continued to get outlined. I think that was kind of like the meat of it. Even if WME's contracts with the Wayfarers were terminable at will, they were indisputably disrupted. Sure. Alternative, the FAC states a claim for intentional interference. Yeah. I feel like we've already heard all of these arguments for the most part, but I think Baldoni's team did a really good job of outlining all of this and putting together a really strong case. The motion to strike should be denied or granted with leave to amend. The Wayfarer parties incorporate by reference their arguments relating to the motion to strike Exhibit A to the FAC from the prior briefing. The Wayfarer parties respectfully urge the court deny the motion in its entirety. In the alternative, should the court be inclined to grant the motion in whole or in part, the Wayfarer parties respectfully request that they be granted leave to amend their complaint. So they want to be able to amend it should Ryan Reynolds end up winning. Wow, that hour went by fast. Fast. La Madame Claus says, I love and appreciate the receipts. Little thank you for dropping the receipts and allowing me to make my own decisions and opinion. Yes, of course. Paula says, Justin is looking buff. Yes, he is. He's looking good. The Court of Random Opinion became a YouTube member. Oh, Lauren, welcome to the Zack Pack, Lauren. Welcome to the jungle. Brigitte says the case is going to make Friedman a global attorney and it will be well deserved. I think so too. It is hard because you really don't know what a jury is going to decide. I think watching that dumb Discovery ID documentary, the one that was released on Max this week, I think that definitely shows me like the people that are believing Blake, like that shows me that there are still people in the general public that could potentially be called into the jury pool that will see those things and that will buy, what Blake Lively's legal team is selling them, which is kind of crazy. It's wild. Sharon says, keep hitting the thumbs up button, guys. Yes, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, continue to show some love in the club. We're at 91.3, guys. We're less than 10,000 away. Less than 9,000 away from hitting 100K. I think we can do it. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe here on YouTube, Zack Peter on YouTube, and stream new episodes of No Filter with Zack Peter Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday mornings here on YouTube and available on all podcast platforms. Melanie King said, that documentary was a hot GTP mess. I know that's right. How do I become a member? You can become a member. There's a link in the description below that should let you become a member. Sometimes you may have trouble doing it if you're on mobile. You may have to do it on a desktop. Brigitte says, I wrote a caustic review on that documentary on IMDb. I love it. Cresby says, if I will be a jury and hear this case for the first time, I will surely side with Baldoni. I can sense gaslighting so easily. Yeah. Oh, Christina said she became a member on mobile. Well, there you go. I guess now you can do it on mobile. I know sometimes people do have trouble with that, though. I need Friedman. I love Friedman. Danielle, I did see your comment earlier about how you joined when there were only 14,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and now we're at 91,000, which is crazy how far we've grown. But guys, give the show a follow at No Filter with Zack on Instagram. Go show it some love in the club. You get really funny content that you can enjoy. Really funny content like this one. Blake No Teeth Lively. She's trying to make America yummy again. So definitely go show some love. Give it a follow. Maybe we can get to 200. I don't know. All right. Go give it a follow. No Filter with Zack on Instagram. Get your merch. Get your No Filter Justice for Justin shirts. We have until April 11th. While supplies last, but you have until April 11th to make the purchase. 50% of all proceeds will be donated to the No More Foundation to support survivors of DV and SV. So get a Justice for Justin shirt, Mommy Sleuth, Daddy Sleuth. When you get your shirts, take a picture, tag me so I can give you guys some love. All right. Zack, I still think you should interview a criminal attorney for extortion. Well, I don't know if extortion's going to, because people seem to think that there could be criminal charges of extortion filed against Lively and Reynolds. I don't know if that's actually the case, but maybe. Danielle says, Zack, I'm sending a huge super sticker for the chat when you reach 100,000 subscribers. We're so close. We're almost there. Shellen Lester. Yes. Shellen Lester was the editor of Star Magazine. Yes. That was Shellen was the one on Juicy Scoop we played a clip of earlier. Wanda Lee says, quickly pop in, but Android can easily join as members, but iPhone users most probably need a computer. Oh, yeah. There we go. Extortion is a criminal felony. I know, but I don't know how that would work. Like, would somebody have to report that? Would the District of New York have to decide that they want to pursue that? I don't know. I don't know. Danielle, waiting for your shirt. I believe the first batch of shirts for people that are closer into SoCal should have gotten them on Sunday. And then I believe the other shirts for other US orders should be arriving by April 4th. So by this week, you should get it for sure. Let's get it. Make a do I look like I fell out of a coconut tree wife beater? That would be funny. Yes, don't forget to press the like button, the subscribe button, leave a review, drop a comment, all the things, guys, all the things. I'll continue to give you love and shout outs. Zack, please add hats to your merch so we can, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe some no filter hats. All right. Well, thank you guys. I love you. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I will talk to you later. I'll talk to you tomorrow. It's tomorrow, Thursday. I did watch the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion. I don't know if anybody cared to talk about it. I liked that Garcelle stood up to Sutton. I liked that, I just wish like Garcelle had a good moment at the reunion where she was like putting her foot down and not allowing Sutton to get away with her bullshit. And I'm like, see, had you just held Sutton accountable years ago and like given the other women opportunities to like build friendships with them instead of being so ride or die with Sutton, things could have been so much different. So much different. Yeah, those are my overall thoughts of the reunion. But thanks, guys. Have a good one. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Ciao for now. Bye. Bye.